Blog Talk Radio.
He took an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States of America. By some, he's been called controversial.
I'll keep my freedom, I'll keep my guns, try to keep my money and my religion too. Now, keep in mind that some of my guests have been approached by Homeland Security or FBI saying, why are you going on the Clay Douglas show?
My message to those guys, if they're listening this morning, is go get a cup of coffee. Maybe you'll learn something.
We both took the same oath, to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I don't recall there being an expiration date on that. I'm going to keep my big V8, keep my friends the same, keep the government out of my business, and y'all can keep the change.
He is the free American, Clay Douglas.
We know what we need. We know who to blame.
Catch the Free American Hour, weekdays at 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern.
I'll keep the USA and y'all can keep the change.
For the podcast and more details, visit www.freeamerican.com or catch the podcast by phone by calling 832-999-8621.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Free American Hour. I'm your host, Clay Douglas, the Free American. And my guest today is J.B. Campbell. We just got so much blocking, so much hassles the last time he was on, I decided not to put that up on my website until he was already on my show. Hello, J.B., how are you?
Morning, Clay. I'm doing good.
Good. I'm glad to have you on. You sound good here. Now, J.B., you've got a bit of experience in military. You were in the Rhodesian you were a Rhodesian anti-terrorist in the early 70s. And on your website, you say that I figured the combination of normal African cruelty with Jewish communism was the ultimate in political sadism. The atrocities I witnessed were shocking and revolting. Turned out that my education was incomplete. I was not fully aware of what America had done or what it would do in the decades to come. It took a few years after returning home to see what the future held in store for us Americans. You also talk about the American military, that it hasn't covered itself in glory. And, I've had some really good people on. The one guy that made a movie about Vietnam. But, it's to me it seemed like they missed the point. I took an oath to defend the Constitution and more. You talk about communism. We went to Vietnam to fight communism, and every plank on the Communist Manifesto is intact in America today. What's going on? What do you see happening here? I see the same thing happening to Americans right now that happened to South Africans, that happened to the Russians, and that happened to the Germans too. What do you see, J.B. Campbell?
Yeah, well, it all stemmed, really, I know you believe in the Constitution. I don't believe in the Constitution. I believe in the Bill of Rights. I believe in the Declaration of Independence.
Okay.
Constitution, though, is, a 7-part program for an all-powerful central government, which was not the idea of the revolution. The revolution was to, liberate us, but unfortunately, we had these Articles of Confederation for about 8 years during the revolution and shortly thereafter, but they didn't provide for a taxing authority or for a president or for a Supreme Court that gave the states the power over themselves. But the Rothschild group in Europe wanted to lend money to this new government at interest, but to get repaid they had to have a taxing authority, which did not exist. So they did this Constitutional Convention in 17, whenever it was, and gave us the Constitution in secret. And they were going to modify the Articles of Confederation, but they just scrapped them and gave us this 7-part program for a strong federal central government, which did not exist. So that's the root of our problem. It took 4 years for some good men to say we need a Bill of Rights attached to this thing to protect us from this document. So finally we got that. Even they were watered down, but they were pretty darn good compared with everything else up until then. Unfortunately, that was going to be destroyed by the termites in our government, and they've been destroyed. So the problem is that we're under the control of these central bankers who are taxing us to pay interest to them. They want to live really well, and they want us to live very austerely. So that's the basic problem around the world. And my message is that these people have to be killed. These bankers have destroyed the world, are trying to destroy us, pretty much have. The only way out is to kill them, to execute them in the street, because you're not going to do it legal. You're not going to do it through the law enforcement, because they own the law enforcement. They own the military.
They own the
military is a bunch of us.
They own the judges.
Yeah,
they own the judges too. I mean, this is the bar association, right? They work right for the bankers, don't they?
Yeah, and the law is a Jewish plot. We have to realize this. It is a Jewish plot imposed upon us. We have no say in anything. So, you know, like Kennedy said, if peaceful means are taken away, there's only the violent means left, and that's what we have now.
You know, some author that I put up 10 years ago, I believe it was Claire Wolf, she said it's just too soon to shoot the bastards. You know, and over the last 20 years, I've watched them shoot us. I watched them shoot Randy Weaver's wife. I watched them shoot the people in Waco. I mean, what the heck was that? And press covered for them. Oh, we had to kill those 17 little children to save them from a child molester. That's your Jewish propaganda. That's your Jewish viewpoint, isn't it? That's the Jewish control and attitude behind the news. The Palestinians are all terrorists. The Arabs are all the Muslims are should be killed. I mean, come on, they're doing the same things to us. Seems like the real problem we have is how do we fight evil like that without becoming as evil as they are?
Well, we have to understand the difference between assault and self-defense. You know, under self-defense, anything goes, and it can get ugly, no question. I mean, I fought these terrorists in Rhodesia. It was a good fight, but we had to get real tough with them because they were the most sadistic, vicious bastards on the face of this earth at the time, I thought. But we had to get tough and beat them. That's the same thing here. We got to get the policy makers. It's not just the cops and the feds and the soldiers and the Marines that are being turned against us now. It's these policy makers. We have to go after them. And that is the Council on Foreign Relations, #1. There's lots of others. But the Council on Foreign Relations is where all the policy gets designed. Like, for example, this month in the Council on Foreign Relations magazine, Foreign Affairs, we have the article by the Chief of Staff of the United States Army, Raymond Odierno, and he has called for law enforcement to be taken up by the U.S. Army. So that is the declaration of war against us, and we are now in a state of war. We have to face this fact. We have to grow up, become adults, not being little kids looking to government. Government is the enemy. It's our only enemy right now.
JB, I've been covering this for 20 years. They keep making moves. They keep making moves. The NDAA. When they first formed FEMA, I said this is you know, this ain't right, man. This ain't. They're trying to do something wrong here. And FEMA's rolled into Homeland Security. Homeland Security is. I've got a whole film right up on my website right now that shows how they're being controlled and being fed the information from the Southern Poverty Law and the ADL, Jewish-controlled organization. They demonize me. They demonize anybody out there. They've demonized Ron Paul. This is a communist organization. Now, what happened in Rhodesia? Let me. What's happening? I think what's happening here happens in country after country after country, and they went after the UN went after Rhodesia, didn't they? Because they based the Constitution on ours.
They did. Well, they based their Declaration of Independence. They declared, they called the UDI, Unilateral Declaration of Independence in 1965 against, from England. They were never a British colony. They were owned by a private company, the British South Africa Company. But it was kind of British controlled, so the Rhodesians declared independent, just modeled their Declaration of Independence on ours from England. Well, because they were a white minority government, about 250,000 whites and about 4 million Africans, the American President Johnson and the British Prime Minister Wilson said, no, you're going to go to your knees. We're going to bring you to your knees. You're going to have majority rule. In other words, black rule. And they said, no, we're going to have white rule. And we're going to be civilized, because everything else in Africa that's gone black has gone into the toilet, as we see, since Rhodesia became Zimbabwe and South Africa became whatever it's become. It's gone to the toilet. That's just the way it is in Africa. So, America, England, the Soviet Union, and Red China combined against little Rhodesia, the size of Montana, and waged a terroristic war on that little country. And we fought very hard, but we were betrayed by leadership, because the leadership sold out eventually to Washington, D.C. and to London and to the United Nations. That's how we lost. We never would have lost otherwise. So anyway, it's the same thing every place. It's always betrayal by leaders. And that's what we're facing here, is betrayal by leaders.
Well, they have, and I took an oath to defend the Constitution, like a lot of other people. But that whole thing has been turned around. It's just been the soldiers have been pointed in the wrong direction. The police have been pointed in the wrong direction. And it started a long time ago, I think, when they stole our #1 cash crop, JB. I've said, if a man with a badge can walk up to you and say, what do you got in your pocket there, son? Let me see what you got in your pocket. Oh, that looks like marijuana. That looks like hemp. Oh, I'm going to have to put you in jail. You're going to have to pay a fine. You're going to have to do some time. Then you are living in a police state. Aren't you?
Well, yeah, and this is America, and regardless of what it's become, we Americans have the duty to overthrow the police state by violence. That's the way we became a country. We overthrew, we weren't Americans fighting a foreign government. We were Englishmen fighting the English government. And it was a pretty radical thing. But that's what we're going to have to do now. We're Americans, we're going to have to fight the American government and overthrow this police state. There's no peaceful way to do this.
Let me stress something here, because I don't think people really understand that we're not talking about revolution here. We're talking about doing what they told us to do, what we took an oath to do, to defend this country against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I mean, that's whether you agree with the Constitution or not. I do agree with you about the Bill of Rights, and but we're doing that. We are trying to defend this country. You are talking about defending this country. You went over to defend Rhodesia, and how many white people were slaughtered over there? How many white Christians were killed over when the Bolsheviks took over? And aren't they doing the same thing to us? I mean, I understand over 60,000 Americans have been murdered since 9/11, and that 90% of the people in prison for murder are illegal aliens. So they're running the darkies, the dark races in on us. They're running the illegals on here. How come so many veterans are homeless and you hardly ever see any homeless illegals? Are you there? Hang on, we've lost a call here. Hold on, I'll get them back here. Come on. Skype's trying to get the calls back. JB, can you hear me yet? Okay, I'm out of there. I guess. Call dropped. That's interesting. We'll try to bring this up.
Since it appears you're calling back into a live show, we are reconnecting you now. Please enter the call ID followed by the pound key. Enter your PIN followed by the pound. You are now joining the call.
Recorded live.
You are unmuted.
All right, now let's see if I can get two others back up. And par for the course. And JB's calls have failed here. Let's try it again. You there, JB?
I'm here.
All right. Somebody just don't like me talking to you. You know that?
I don't want us talking.
How are you? All right. We got you back up here. And I can't turn my camera on because I'm up on Blog TV over here. But it's great.
Camera.
Okay. We don't need that. All right. My guest is J.B. Campbell. We keep getting disconnected here occasionally, but everything seems to be working now. J.B., we are at that point. I mean, why can't, if the FBI and the police and the CIA and the government is working for us, you know, why aren't they putting any of the bankers in jail? Why aren't they putting any of these politicians in jail that have sold us out to China, foreign countries? Why are we giving foreign aid to 150 countries? There's only 192 in the whole world. Are they just taking our money? Are they just using American money to finance their campaigns? All that money goes back into the media. The media doesn't give you any of the kind of information that you're giving us.
I don't know how they justify foreign aid or anything, honestly. You know, it's all an assault on us. We are the targets. We have to be broken. We have to be brought down to the third world level. That's the plan. Then we have to be exterminated. We have to be put in concentration camps. So the question is, what are we going to do about it? I'm not interested in problems anymore. I'm only interested in solutions. And the solution, unfortunately, is the same one that existed in 1775, 1776, and that is a violent revolution. I am a revolutionary. That's America became a country through revolution, violent revolution. That's what they try to make us forget. They say, well, Yeah, that was then, but of course we're civilized now. No, we're not. We mustn't be civilized. We must be violent American revolutionaries forever. That's the only way to stay free. You got to be willing to kill to defend yourself.
I've tried to point out to
away
people. I've tried to point out to people that I study history. And I don't recall. I don't recall ever finding anything going all the way back to the Bible where it was easy to be free. You know, we've always had to fight for our freedom. We've always had to stand up for liberty, or we've been slaves. Now, have they? I think that they have refined the art of slavery to the point that the slaves don't know they're slaves. Is that possible?
Well, we're the most heavily armed slaves in the history of the world. It's a contradiction. They can't take the guns away from us, but they can disarm us mentally, which is what they've been doing all these years. So I started the militia back in '89, and by pointing out that we have all these guns and they're meant to be used against tyranny, not for hunting and not for target shooting and not for this or that. It's to overthrow violent government. That's our gift, and we have to use this thing. So
now,
there's no peaceful way to stay safe. You know, we have to use our guns against tyrants. It's always the way it is, and it's always going to be that way. So let's get with the program here.
I get blamed by the ADL for starting the militias in New Mexico, which I did, and did it with full knowledge of the governor, the sheriffs, everybody in the state, every legislature in the state knew what I was doing, knew who I was, and nobody except the ADL and Southern Poverty Law had a problem with it. Now those Southern Poverty Law, they tried to demonize me by linking me with the militia. You know, my answer is, what part of the Second Amendment don't you understand? But they've carried this program further. Now they're trying to demonize the veterans, and it's Southern Poverty Law, ADL again, Jewish controlled organizations. And the press is the only people giving them the play, but it's gone worse than that. They've really infiltrated and taken over the FBI. They're providing all the information, demonizing you and I as extremists or anti-government or radicals, which I suppose we are. If we're opposing the communist government, then we're certainly doing the right thing. We are not the criminals here. They are. Why aren't we putting them in jail, and how are we going to do that?
Well, I'm an anti-terrorist, always have been for many, many years. And I will tell you that America's #1 terrorist organization is the FBI. And that is proved by what they did at the World Trade Center in 1993. They created the bomb that gave to their man, Imad al-Salem, to blow up the World Trade Center in 1993. That was an FBI operation. And they were willing to kill dozens of thousands of people for the Israeli operation known as whatever the operation was called, run by John Antisev for the FBI. That same year, they murdered the people in Waco. That was a terrorist operation. I mean, the most vicious, sadistic terrorist operation in American history. So FBI is a terrorist organization, and we have to treat it as such. We can't pretend that it's involved in law enforcement. It's involved in terror. And the terrorists have to be killed. Anybody working for a terrorist organization is a terrorist. Let's grow up, face facts. And that goes for the CIA, the NSA, and all the bloody alphabet, stupid agencies, the TSA. They're all a bunch of terrorists. They're trying to destroy us. So let's wake up, grow up, and use our guns the way they were meant to be used to wipe these people out. They're not our friends. They cannot be justified. They suck up our tax money. They impoverish us. They're parasites with guns that we give them. They're using their cars and their guns and their clothes and their badges, and everything they have comes from us to tyrannize us.
Well,
wake up.
let's talk about that. You know, in my book Mystery Babylon, I over 25 years ago, I got a hold of a document called Operation Watchtower, written by Colonel Edward P. Catolo. I met the people involved in this operation, some of them doing life in prison to silence them. But it was about George Bush's operation to, at the same time, running in conjunction with Iran-Contra, but a little bit more top secret, to bring in a few hundred plane loads of cocaine into a nice little protected airport called Mena, Arkansas. And flash forward 25 years, and we've got the BATF, the same ones that murdered the people at Waco, the same ones that blew up the federal building and tried to blame it on militias, passing out guns being used to kill our Border Patrol agents. I mean, what is this? Is this the BATF supplying the CIA, you know, with the CIA pretending to be the drug cartels to bring billions of dollars of drugs into this country so they can bust you or me or your kids for something and put them in jail and turn this more and more into a police state? I mean, it's the gulags are here. They're built. They're ready. I think they call some of them federal and state pens. What? A little bit of input.
Well, again, I mean, it's the same terroristic behavior by our employees. They've turned on us, and there's no way, there's no peaceful way, there's no legal way to deal with these guys. They own the legal system. They've usurped it. So, like, as Jack Kennedy said, when the peaceful means are taken away from us, there only remains the violent means to stay in control of your life. Either that or just give up. So which is it going to be? You know, I say we fight and keep fighting until these guys give up and surrender. But there's no way to, you know, we don't want them as prisoners because they've shown themselves to be too treacherous. You can't, there's no way to rehabilitate anybody who's a traitor. That is the ultimate character flaw. It has to be punished with death. There's no way to say, well, you go to prison for 20 years and then you'll be a good, you know. It's like a child molester. These people cannot be rehabilitated. They have to be exterminated. So either way, either it's them or us. Which is it going to be? I say it's them.
You know, I've asked myself a few times, who are we fighting for? Who are we doing this for? Because a lot of our worst enemies and the people that have done the most damage have been our friends, relatives, or neighbors. I mean, it's trying to talk to them about what's happening here and what we've got to do to withstand this. I mean, oh, Clay, you'd just do so much better if you didn't talk about Jews, you know, if you didn't talk about marijuana, if you'd be so much better. So it's like the patriots are demonizing me. Why? Because I like to smoke a joint now and then. You know, because I don't believe anybody ought to go to prison for what they got in their pocket. You know, nothing in our Constitution allows that. Nothing in our Bill of Rights basically stands up against that kind of police state. That war on drugs was a war on the American people, and that can be proven over and over again. The war on terror. I've said you got about as much chance of being killed by a terrorist, unless it's FBI or CIA, in the United States as you do getting eaten by a great white in Phoenix.
Yeah. Well, the whole issue, Clay, is central banking and the lending of credit, which is supposed to be illegal. But that's our system that we have to overthrow. The banking system lends credit, but then we have to repay in cash and more than we've borrowed. Now, I have a question. If everybody has to pay back more than he borrows because of interest, where does the extra come from? Well, it has to come from inflation. They inflate the money supply to pay them their interest. Now they're demanding austerity.